Well, hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the New Construction Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Anya Christianten, and I'm very excited to introduce my guest for today. Her name is Debra Wyatte. Debra is the Experience Officer, sorry, Chief Experience Officer with Sicilian Partners. So, Debra, I'm so excited to have you on today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Anya. I appreciate it. And I'm excited to have that conversation today.
Yeah. So, okay. So the chief experience officer, I could barely get out. So
Okay.
what does it mean?
Yeah, what does it mean? So really the chief experience officer is just that, speaking to the experience of our company, our brand, and kind of that champion and getting our message out. And really my focus is to identify the experience our customers take every day. And that customer could be a prospective buyer. That customer could be a developer, a builder, and kind of everybody that happens in that new construction aspect, and how we can enhance their day-to-day operations in their experience of interacting with one another in a positive way, and where technology can play a role in that.
Love that. So obviously, customer experience and technology have been huge, topics as of late. So before we
Right?
get into it, I'd love to hear your story. So I'm always fascinated by where people come from in this industry. So tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself personally, what your journey has been up until this point, and how did you end up where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So many moons ago, born and raised in Indiana, and got my degree in actually tourism and hospitality with a focus of like parks and recreation. So, how did I end up in real estate? Really, my focus and why I took that journey early on, I always wanted to create memorable experiences for people and make a positive impact. And so, when I was an undergrad, I wanted to be a wedding planner because Jennifer Lopez came out with that movie with Matthew
Of
McConaughey,
course.
and, started to think about how I could do that for a living. Yes, I've planned some weddings, but that was a long time ago. But that ability to kind of make a memorable, impression in somebody's life that will last them for a lifetime is just really where I've been in my career and have since. And so stumbled into the real estate side and really master plan communities because I came across a position called a lifestyle director. And, we think about a cruise ship director that plans all the events for a cruise. Well, it's very similar in master plans where they have amenities and trying to create this social fabric within the community to kind of help residents engage with one another. And so started that, fell in love with it, and spent well over a decade in some capacity working with master plan communities and developers and builders across the country, really trying to identify how they can leverage the experiences that they're creating with their residents post-purchase, and how to tie that into the pre-purchase process and engaging those prospective buyers. So before they even move into a community, they can kind of identify how that's going to experience and how their family is really going to live and thrive there. And so fast forward a little bit, met John Sicilian and his team and saw their technology and was like, wow, this is really going to impact the prospective buyer, make that builder developer relationship more streamlined and smooth, and creating them, that better process. And so I joined Sicilian Partners at the beginning of last year, 2020, and really came on as their chief experience officer to share the message and, help builders and developers and prospective buyers. So
Awesome. So it makes total sense with your background. So from hospitality background, because when I think customer service, customer experience, I think there's no better industry that can teach us about that than hospitality. And then so totally makes sense that you were lifestyle director for Master Plan Community. I mean, they couldn't have. It's like they won a lottery with you, the Sicilian partners, right? Like the combo. So, can you tell us
I
a
did
little?
pretty great too. So I kind of won the lottery too a little bit, but yeah.
But I mean, that's like a perfect experience for what you do. So, can you tell us a little bit about Sicilian partners and what is it that you guys do? What problems you solve?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sicilian Partners, really, we are our like focus, our heart really is based around the customer experience in real estate, and how we kind of tackle that is in a couple of different ways, but really our main focus is leveraging our technology, the XO, to help solve that problem. So when we think about, my background in hospitality, we've got other members. Our founder, John Sicilian, spent well over 15 years in retail. So he's got that brick and mortar mentality as well, and bringing them into the e-commerce. And so we've got all these different areas of expertise that we bring into the real estate realm of how consumers do a lot of other things, and interact digitally, and how we can actually bring that to market with new home construction. And so the XO does just that. It brings kind of that live inventory interactive map, if you think about a Zillow or a Redfin component, for master plan communities and builders, as well as kind of streamlining the communications and all of that back of the house operational stuff that happens from ARC reviews, design process, elevations, tracking sales, etc., and making that a better experience for both the builder and developers relationship.
Love that. So how did you guys come up with the name XO?
Right. It's kitschy, right?
Good hugs and kisses.
Yeah, hugs and kisses. So really the XO, how it came to life is it's kind of the marriage of the experiential data that comes into play from the consumer end and sales and tracking, and the front end side. So the X of the experience and the O of operations. So if you think about, from square footage of a home to lots inventory to all of that stuff that happens in the back of the house, the operation. So the XO brings them together in one central place to where all of that communication can happen.
Yes. So for, we're obviously, I'm out of Northeast, and in Northeast, and you guys are located literally down the street from me in New Hope, PA. So for our area, master plan communities are not as a thing, I guess I should say, just
Right.
because we don't have as much land as some other areas like, Texas and Florida. The master plan communities are huge there, as well as Charlotte. So for those listeners who are maybe from this area and are not familiar with the concept of master plan, can you talk to that a little bit more and explain what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So master plans will be references like MPCs, but really what they are is, if you think of a neighborhood, and it can be an established neighborhood, at some point somebody came up with an idea of how to lay out those streets, how they were going to interact with one another. Maybe there's a community park or a city park that's integrated into that. And from a master plan community, it's very similar in that it's, if you think of it like a small city within a city, meaning that there's specific regulations, there's typically an association or a district attached to it, that kind of creates this unified governmental structure. But really, they all share kind of similar amenities, whether it be, an amenity center, trails, parks, a clubhouse, a pool, those things that they all kind of come together. And really where the kind of difference is in master plan communities, there's typically a global theme or a vision to it. There's typically multiple builders that are all happening, and it all kind of has a similar design element or structure to it. So the homes, while they may look the same, architecturally they are different, and it's definitely focused more on that new home construction.
hmm So I think I know the answer since you were the lifestyle director, but let me ask you anyway. So, how important do you think is the consideration of, what else is out there besides my home? So, for most consumers, when they're thinking about building a new home, obviously the home itself is super important, right? Like, does it meet my expectations as far as the number of bedrooms, the layout, all of that stuff. But what about outside of my house? Is it the street that I live on, the community, the neighborhood? So, how important is it? For people to actually know and make an educated decision based on the area around. Do you have any data, like as far as, do people typically move? I know, like for downsizers, right, they try to kind of stay within the same area. So when we see the migrating patterns for downsizers specifically, it's typically they want to stick to the same area so they can keep their friends, their doctors, etc. So how important do you think it is for people to know that area when they're considering buying a new home, or is it more about the home?
So I think it's kind of twofold, right? So it's really a home. You can build a particular home anywhere. It's where you're going to actually live and call it home. And home is actually everything that surrounds it and not just inside your four walls. And so I think it's extremely important because when you're looking for a new home, maybe you're relocating and you're going to go, and not only are your kids going to have to make new friends in school, you're also going to have to make new friends. And so that's really where that master plan component kind of comes into play, because if there's programming where you can kind of gravitate towards, I'm an avid cyclist, I love to ride. And so if I, am moving to a particular area where I know cycling is prevalent, my natural, process is going to feel like, okay, I need to find a cycling group. And if I can find a community where there's somebody there that's establishing that social framework of like specific groups and clubs that meet my niche, I'm going to be more drawn towards it. And the nice thing is as a builder, a salesperson, and they're talking to me on the phone and trying to get to know me, they can start to tie in those little experience pieces into the sales process with me and my family to kind of drive the point home of why you should live in this community, because we're going to tie in all of those emotional things of living in a home in an area, as well as where you can live, how you can maximize that floor plan, that type of thing.
For sure. And so the word that pops into my head is really lifestyle. And I think it is a huge opportunity when it comes to selling, is to sell the lifestyle. So often we're concentrating on, the features rather than the benefits.
Right.
And so selling to lifestyle, like think about your community, what amenities you have, especially if you are selling in a mastermind community. Sorry, not mastermind, master plan community, but might as well be mastermind,
We
right?
could have a mastermind program,
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Because
Yeah.
and if you think about it, it's probably that a lot of people living in that community have similar values
Right.
because of what attracted them to that community in the first place. So I think it's a huge opportunity for salespeople to sell specifically to lifestyle and not just concentrate on the bricks and sticks, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, because if you think about, purchasing a home, some people may do it at, a few times a year. It's the biggest purchase that you're going to make. It's a lot of emotional tie to it. You know, and that's really where a salesperson can kind of help establish those relationships and really kind of leverage that understanding of how the community is going to operate, how you and your family are going to actually have a better life and be able to go for family walks together and play at the parks together easily from an accessibility standpoint. Those types of things really kind of take that sales element less from more of an order taker to more of like somebody who really is there and trying to help you make the best decision possible and for your family.
Yes, and especially now, I think a lot of salespeople are at risk of becoming that order taker just because of how busy we've been, and it's yes, you certainly
Yeah.
don't need a whole lot of sales, training or sales experience to sell a new home right now with the demand. But if you think about the lifestyle, and then when you buy a new home, you don't just buy a new home, you buy new friends, you buy new community, you buy new acquaintances. So it's all part
You
of that.
buy a new commute sometimes. Like,
Exactly. You
you know,
buy into that. So think about, like, for a family with young kids, for example, how important is it for that family to have other children that are their age in the same community, have a playground, have maybe a pool. And I know right now, I forgot what the master plan community is called. I want to say it's like something like a Blue Lagoon or something like that. I don't know if you've
oh,
seen
there's Crystal Lagoon.
Crystal Lagoon. I think that's
Yeah,
the one.
that's an amenity.
I
Yeah.
mean, if you guys haven't checked it out, you got to check it out. I mean, it's like they made this like man-made lagoon that's like pure, crystal clear water. And it's kind of like, I think I've seen those things in Dubai that first started to
Yeah.
pop up, where they made their own like islands and basically like the beach, right? So it's a very similar idea, except you don't have to be anywhere near the beach to be on this beautiful, beautiful water. So I mean, I can't imagine that it would take a whole lot of selling to convince
Right,
me,
right.
right, to move into something like that. But it's one thing when you have people moving to a community or to a new home who lived in the area. I think more so with the pandemic, we're starting to see kind of a bigger migrations right now where people are not just moving across town, but they're moving across country a lot of times. And a lot of times that move happens without them actually being physically there, right? Like my husband's been talking about moving to Colorado, where actually Debra is from. So, um, so if we went to Boulder and we were like, okay, we love the town and we know, we want to be here, we don't necessarily actually have to be there to buy a house, right? We have the ability to view pretty much everything virtually. That's one great thing that this pandemic kind of pushed forward with the builders, is that we do have that ability. Now, how do I actually see, where this is located, and what's around me? And I think that's the solution that you guys bring. So if you can talk a little bit more to it, because it's one thing to look at Google Maps and see, oh, there's a highway right next to my house, maybe I don't want to be there. So what is it that you guys do to be able to show, and I think most importantly, to help that out of town buyer really understand where they're going to be living?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a great question. And we all love Google Maps. We use them all the time, but unfortunately, Google Maps doesn't keep up with the pace of new development. So a lot of times they're probably 6 to 9 months behind on where roads are and where a lot would be and where a home would be and addresses and all of that. And so our technology on the X side of the XO really speaks to that. So if you think from Zillow, Redfin, you can always kind of see like where things are from a resale standpoint, but new homes, it hasn't been there. And so for us, we do these interactive maps where you can see each individual lot. They're active. So it's live inventory for the consumer where they can go in, they can sort and filter by price points, bedrooms, builders, if they know a particular one they want to look at, even architecture. Sometimes if somebody really wants that, Colorado farmhouse kind of thing, they can, sort from that because they love that style, and identify which builders offer it and what lots they have available where that could be. And so if you are moving across the country or even across the metroplex, in some of these, it can take 2 hours to get from one side to the other. That time is valuable to you and your family. And so if you can specifically go in and see exactly what's available, go and request information, that gives you the opportunity to kind of continue with your kids' soccer game and move on with your life, and then have that particular builder reach out to you and say, okay, Debra, we actually, that lot is available. Love to have you come in. Can you come in on Thursday or Saturday or whatever? And I'll get it scheduled to where we can go and show you that specific lot, maybe show you some spec inventory that you may not have known that's available. But then as the buyer, you can also start to see exactly where that lot is in the community. So if it's by a potential, future school, or it's near a particular playground, or it's at a major intersection, all of those things start to come in. So as the end consumer, you can see how you're going to be able to interact in that community. Maybe I have a long commute already. I don't want to have another 15-minute commute to get to the back of the community. I'd much rather be a little closer, not necessarily, off of like in the back essentially. Or, I have a dog and they do not like other things around us. So I really don't need backyard neighbors. I need to kind of have my yard open to open space. I want to be able to walk out my door and have 2 minutes to the nearest trail. Those types of things as a consumer, you can start to experience and understand, where if you think about new construction, you drive out and there's like all these, hopefully all sold signs, but available signs on empty lots on dirt. And you're like, you can't see the vision, right?
Right.
And for us who are in the industry, we see the vision. We know exactly what that street's going to look like, but to them, they don't. And so that's really where the consumer map allows them to go, okay, so I understand that there are going to be three more houses this direction, and then that's where the intersection is, or that's where the amenity like program's going to start, because that's where the clubhouse is going in a few years. So it helps them understand what those dynamics are at the community that hopefully they're going to pick to live in.
Yes, for sure. And if you think about consumers, how confusing it is for most people just to figure out like the house itself, let alone the community. And like I've spent, I don't know how many hours, out in the field with with customers back in my selling days, with the tape measure and the boots and the hard hat, like measuring it out, like where your house is gonna sit, where your backyard, like how it's gonna slope, what it's gonna back out to. So, I mean, and I'd say I was pretty good salesperson, but still to me, that was like those days that give me hives thinking about it, like, selling to consumer like that, where now we have amazing technology that takes the guesswork out of it, right? And if you happen to make a mistake, like I remember so many times, like I didn't realize the plan was like reverse versus per plan, and I was like, oh my god, I showed them the complete opposite thing like I needed
Right.
to. So it's like apologize to the consumer. So that really takes that human error out, because you can see exactly where the house is going to sit. And if you're interested in a specific house, one of the things that you can see is like, okay, what are the available lots that can actually accommodate that, right? I don't have to sit there and go through my literally I had like flip grids where it's like, okay, like if you want this house and if you want like a morning room off the back, that adds like 15 feet. So now it can only fit on lot A, B, C, but like you have to cross reference, like, has this been sold?
Right.
And oh, if you are, if you're interested in this, but then like you really wanted a brown siding, but this is the lot that already has brown siding. And I didn't discover this till later. Like this is like for no
Yeah.
wonder new home sales makes people make so much money, right? Like
Right.
because there's so much that we have to
Yeah.
know and to be able to educate the consumer. So like this technology really takes that guesswork out, and it allows the consumer to see the vision.
Right, right. Absolutely. Well, and that whole narrative, and we wonder why one in three new home buyers cry during the process, because it's so cumbersome and there's so many different layers to it that resale doesn't necessarily have, but there's so many more benefits, right? And so, really, we've talked about the X side, but on the O side of the XO is really where all of that can be streamlined and more efficient for the salesperson, as well as create less stress on the buyer side. And I'll give you an example, and you mentioned it, of like they want to have this particular color, and you're like, wait, do those other lots already have it? Like, are they sold? Like, oh, so that ARC aspect that happens, the anti-monotony or anti-repetition, depending on the community and what they want to call it, but is automatically happening in the background. So if you're in the XO and you're sitting with a buyer, you can say, okay, Debra, you want this lot, is there a particular elevation you're looking at? And if I say yes, we can automatically go and see if we can build that on that lot. If I'm married to that Colorado farmhouse style, we can go find a lot where that supports it. If I don't care really where I live, but I know I want to live in this community and build with you. Or I can say, no, I absolutely need this lot on the cul-de-sac. It'll be quieter. We both work from home. It opens to open space, and the neighbor is a little bigger of a lot because it's in a cul-de-sac. Tell me what elevations I can actually build here. And really, I'm good. And so the XO allows that kind of really live time interaction with the salesperson and their buyer, versus how it typically happens is you identify, I've got my dream house from a consumer side, I know what I want, it's my lot, I'm so excited, and then you wait 3-4 weeks to hear back from the ARC process, and then the salesperson has to come back and say, yeah, no, you can't have that. And then it's like, oh, well, what can I have? And then it's like second choice, third choice, and it just creates all this like, oh, well, okay, this, you settle. So it's interesting to see how fast leveraging the XO, especially on the operation side, can actually speed up the sales cycle time. And we've had clients that have gone, 2 to 3 weeks of an increased sales cycle time, which is good for both the developer and the builder side, as well as the consumer, right? They get to move into their home even faster and not necessarily continue that delay in construction that's happening all over.
Sounds like Hank is going nuts over there. It's their office dog.
Yeah,
He's-
it's entertaining.
I wanna see if he'll make an appearance.
Oh, I'm sure he would.
We love dogs. My I have two huskies, so they periodically like come in and bust in on me. So it's either the kids or the huskies. Somebody comes in busting in. So right. And then so you mentioned that data,
Yeah.
but I think also, I mean, which is obviously great for builders, because to this day I still laugh because I remember specifically I was working in this one community, and I messed up somebody's house where I gave them a choice of colors that like were not supposed to be. And when it was all said and done, there was this like one bright blue house that was like more of like a beach kind of a style that like totally didn't belong in Pennsylvania. So I still remember like my sales manager like rolling his eyes at me like, how did this ever happen? And like, how did nobody caught that, like
Right.
the
Yeah.
siding was already up. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, the
You're
paper
like,
said it
I
was
got
available.
approved. I don't know.
And exactly. So now, I mean, the customer is happy with it, but I don't know if the rest of the neighbors love
Right.
the
Right. Yeah.
contrast. So that certainly um, solves that problem. And then I think the bigger thing for the developer, because again, for master plan communities, the biggest benefit for the developers to be able to see the back end that you guys provide, since so many times when you talk to developers and you say like, hey, how many lots do you still have available, how many do you need to release in the next month, they have no idea, because and the builder has to go to the developer to ask for new lots or next phase or whatever. And it's just like it's not talking to each other. So
Right.
I love that your system really ties it on all together. So like the developer can look and see exactly what the community looks like. And then one of the things I saw in the demo was that you can also see by plan, by price point, like what's selling really well. And I
Yeah.
think that's a huge benefit for developer to be able to share that information with the builders blindly, so you're not saying like, oh, this builder is selling more than this builder, but
Yeah.
blocking out the info saying like, hey, this square footage at this price point seems to be doing really well in this community versus something that's not doing well. So again, I think at the end of the day, it's a goal for the developer to work with the builders. And obviously, the faster the builder is selling, the happier the developer is. So
Yeah.
if you can share that information and say, hey, maybe consider changing your offering, because clearly the other guy down the street is doing way better than you are,
Right. Yeah.
is a big benefit as well.
Absolutely. Well, and it's not just the developers getting all that data. I mean, yes, the developer can leverage it and see, builder by builder of how many lots they've sold this week, what lot sizes they're selling, what elevations, price per square foot, all of that stuff in one spot from the developer side, right? Because if they have two builders or they have 22 builders, all of that stuff is there. But even from, that kind of data dashboard, the builders get that access as well. So if you think there's multiple salespeople happening, sometimes your schedules overlap, sometimes they don't. If you're a regional person and you need a glimpse into what that community is doing, you can quickly see how many sales you've had this week, how you're comparing to other builders like holistically in the community. So you can identify, oh, well, yeah, everybody's running out of lots, or we're actually the highest performing builder in this community. But you can see exactly, how close you're getting to your specific inventory in that community. So you can start to have those conversations really quickly, and vice versa. From a developer side, you can say, oh my gosh, at this pace, we're out of lots in 3 months. Or, okay, we've got a little bit of a buffer. when we're looking at kind of the next phase, how should we structure it based off of the demographics and how fast things are selling on a particular lot size, and kind of for that next phase, make sure that we're actually going to deliver a product, lot size, price point that we're seeing from a consumer standpoint and interactive from the map side and the buyers that are coming in to attract even more and keep that momentum and absorption moving. So
Yes, for sure. And I think also one of the things that that price transparency allows the builders to do is, like, one of the biggest challenges with new construction historically has been appraisals, and especially now in a recent couple of years when the prices have really been going up a lot. It's really becoming an issue where the home may not necessarily appraise for what you're selling it for. So, and I think most builders are not great at getting comps. I remember back in the day, I used to, drive around every month, like to go visit all of my competitor communities, because that's not something you can often get on MLS, just because it's not published, or if it's published, it's months and months down the street. They don't release that information right away. And yeah, I used to drive around all of my competitors trying to gather that information, and some were good at sharing that information, knowing that like we mutually benefit by sharing, but some were like, I'm not giving that to you. And so this really allows the builders to see, like, okay, what price points are we, and do we have a concern before we actually start building with the appraisal value? Because that's a really big hot topic right now that we're I think a lot of builders are experiencing the issues. So
right. Yeah. And if you think of how much time you spent doing that, driving around trying to find that, or searching the internet and hoping for an MLS to pop up that you could actually leverage. And, that time could be spent with the buyer, or, going through paperwork that you still have to do. So, absolutely having that kind of insight and knowledge, in lifetime, in real time, right at your fingertips is very impactful. And, from a builder standpoint, if who's moving into the community and everything else, and being able to leverage that on your end from a marketing perspective of, okay, maybe we should test out this new elevation here that actually meets the requirements from a design standpoint, but I think it's going to attract this buyer that we've been missing, or capitalize on this buyer that we're having a lot of success with, but we want to offer something different. And so it's definitely interesting in that aspect too.
yeah, for sure. Like, data is the new, what do they say? Is the new what? The new gold,
Yeah.
right? Data
Data
is
is
the new
king, data is
currency.
money. Yeah. So it is. I mean, the in having it is one thing, right? Because everybody all has some form of data, but having it in real time, right? So you can make those decisions, you can understand, and especially if we think of a year ago, right? Everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, what's going to happen?" And to have it be in a spreadsheet somewhere, or on a map in somebody's office, and the offices are closed, how do you keep the sales cycle moving if you can't run your own dot map and anti-monotony, where our clients were like, nope, we can still go, keep sending it to us, it's all digital, it's all right here, we can keep that process moving, and they did. So
Yeah. And I think especially now that we're getting like a lot of builders are, have stopped sales or in the process of stopping sales just because they can't keep up. So that again gives you that bird's eye view to see, like, okay, like, how are we actually doing? Do we need to slow down if we haven't already? And like, by how much, so that we can really look ahead. So I love that. So Debra, thinking about our conversation today, really like a couple of things, I guess a couple of biggest themes emerged for me is like, okay, knowing data and using that data to allow customers to make easier decisions. Because I think that is a biggest challenge when it comes to buying new construction, is just inability to see the information, inability to to visualize it and picture it and really make that choice. And then the second thing is the lifestyle. And I think that is a big opportunity for a lot of salespeople to really think about your sales process and don't assume when somebody walks into your model home, if they're walking into your model home, or if you're Zooming with them or on the phone with them, that they know the area. That may be a person
Right.
who's moving from across the country. And even if, so spend some time more discovering like how familiar are you with this area. And really, that's a huge opportunity to sell that lifestyle because remember, at the end of the day, it's not just the four walls, like you said, you are
Right.
buying the new lifestyle, the new friends, the new community. So
Right. Yeah.
well, Deborah, thank you so much for being on today. As we wrap up, are there any last thoughts? Anything else you think that you'd want to share with us today?
Yeah, I mean, really, the thing is that I would like to just kind of tie it all together is, I just would challenge everyone to just really identify ways of how you can improve, the experience overall. And we mentioned data is out there and how you can leverage it as well as technology to, create those ways to streamline and actually storytell and message better with your buyer, as well as make your life less stressful on the operations side. So, yeah, no, it was a pleasure and it was great speaking with you today as well.
Thank you. So, if somebody wanted to learn more about Sicilian Partners and what you guys do, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, so the best way to connect with us would be via our website, which is SicilianPartners.com. We're on LinkedIn as well, or you can find me on LinkedIn too, and I'll be happy to point you in the right direction. So,
Awesome. Well, Deborah, it was a pleasure to get to know you. And I hopefully will see you in person, maybe at SCBC.
yay, hopefully, fingers
Yay.
crossed. So awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll talk to you very soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.